The desert stretched endless under a dying sun, its heat pressing down on a forgotten shack that leaned crooked against the wind. Inside, the air smelled of sweat, whiskey, and rotting wood. Boards creaked as the outlaw stepped forward, boots grinding dust into the floor. His shadow cut long across the walls, falling over the girl crouched in the corner. Her dress was torn, dirt-stained, clutched desperately against her body, as if cloth alone could shield her from his cruelty. She was barely 20, eyes wide, skin bruised in ugly shades. He laughed low, cruel, tugging at the hem of her dress just to watch her flinch. "Don't look there," she pleaded, voice breaking like glass. "Please, just don't," he sneered, spit landing near her bare feet. "You think you get to tell me what I see?" "You're mine to shame." The outlaw yanked her up by the arm, shaking her until her teeth rattled. She bit her lip to keep from crying out, though tears already burned down her cheeks. The walls groaned as if holding her pain. With a shove, he sent her sprawling onto the dirt floor. Dust rose around her like smoke. He grinned at the sight of her crumpled body. "Worthless," he muttered, stumbling toward the door. "Ain't no man coming for you." His boots thudded heavy against the porch as he mounted his horse. The leather saddle creaked, reins snapped, and he rode off with cruel laughter trailing behind him, fading into the horizon. Silence filled the shack. Only the wind remained, slipping through broken boards like a whisper of fate. The girl lay still, clutching her torn dress, whispering words too soft for any ear but the desert's. "Don't." "Look. There." Outside, a rattlesnake slid across the dry earth, pausing as if listening to her broken prayer. Above, a lone buzzard circled, casting a fleeting shadow across the shack's roof. The sun dipped lower, setting the sky aflame. Her breath shuddered, shallow and fragile, yet still alive. In the endless silence, hope flickered faint as the first star rising above the horizon. Unseen, but waiting. The outlaw's horse kicked up a trail of dust as he dragged her outside, the evening sun bleeding red across the horizon. His grip on the rope was merciless, pulling her wrists raw as he hauled her through the sand. Each stumble tore skin from her knees, but he didn't slow, didn't care. He slammed her against a splintered fence post, rope biting deep into her wrists as he bound her tight. The knots burned against flesh already torn, her breath coming in sharp gasps. "Stand there," he growled, teeth yellow, eyes glazed with whiskey. "Let the desert finish what I started." She shook her head weakly, voice trembling. "Please, don't leave me here." He leaned close, breath sour, and hissed, "You're not worth the bullet it'd take." He spat in the dirt, mounted his horse, and with a cruel kick rode off. His laughter echoed until it was swallowed by the endless plains. Silence fell heavy. The sun blistered her skin, the ropes tightening as her arms grew numb. Sweat rolled into her eyes, stinging. The ground beneath her feet was littered with bones. Cattle long dead, picked clean by scavengers. Overhead, black wings circled. Vultures, watching, waiting. Her throat cracked with thirst. She tried to scream, but only a broken whisper came out. "Somebody, please." Hours crawled. The desert shifted from searing heat to bone-cold night. The stars sharpened like knives in the sky. Coyotes howled in the distance, their cries threading through the wind like a death song. Her knees buckled. Rope tore deeper into her wrists as she sagged, body trembling, vision swimming. Dust filled her mouth as she collapsed forward, bound to the post like a crucifix in the sand. Her lips moved in prayer, words scattered, half forgotten. "God, don't let me die here." Not like this. The wind carried her plea across the barren land, soft and broken. Above her, the buzzards circled closer, shadows drifting across her face. Alone, under an endless sky, she teetered on the knife edge between life and death, a forgotten soul abandoned to the mercy of the desert. But somewhere, beyond the horizon, hooves stirred in the dust. The night pressed heavy on the plains, stars cold and sharp above the silent desert. A lone rider cut across the horizon, his horse's hooves steady, the leather saddle creaking in rhythm. The man was no stranger to this land, a rancher weathered by years of sun and dust, his face carved by time and wind. He slowed when he spotted the buzzards. Dark shapes wheeling low, circling in silence. His jaw tightened. Where carrion birds gathered, death usually waited. The rancher reined in his horse, boots hitting the earth with a dull thud. Spurs jingled as he moved forward, rifle slung but ready. He walked carefully, every sense sharpened by the weight of what might lie ahead. Then he saw her. She was tied to the post, slumped, body limp, hair tangled across her face. Her wrists were raw, rope biting deep. For a moment he thought she was already gone. Lord Almighty, he muttered, kneeling beside her. Her chest rose, faint, shallow. She was alive. He pulled his knife, cutting the ropes with steady hands. Her arms fell forward, limp and bruised. She stirred at the touch, eyes fluttering open, glazed with exhaustion. Her voice broke, fragile as glass. "Don't! Look there, please." The rancher paused. He didn't pry, didn't question. Instead, he slid his weathered coat around her shoulders, covering her with quiet respect. "You're safe now," he said, voice low, firm. "No man'll harm you while I'm standing." She shivered, tears catching in the dirt on her cheeks. For the first time in days, her breathing slowed, a flicker of trust finding its way into her broken frame. He lifted her gently into his arms. Her weight was nothing, fragile as driftwood against the current. He carried her to his horse, settling her in the saddle before climbing up behind her. The prairie wind stirred, carrying away the stench of cruelty, replacing it with the faint smell of mesquite and the promise of dawn. With a soft nudge of his heel, the rancher guided his horse toward the distant ridge. Behind them, the fence post stood empty, ropes swaying in the wind, a silent witness to suffering now ended. For the first time, hope rode with her into the night. The horse's hooves struck the hard earth, carrying them through the night until the first pale glow of dawn kissed the horizon. The ranch came into view, a weathered cabin, fences worn by years of storms, lantern light faintly glowing in the window. To most it was just wood and nails. To her, it looked like salvation. The rancher swung down first, boots crunching against gravel. He reached up, steadying her fragile frame as he lifted her from the saddle. She winced at the movement, rope burns raw and aching, but his hands were steady, never rough. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar smoke and strong coffee. The fire cracked softly, throwing long shadows across the plank floor. He eased her down onto a cot near the hearth. For the first time in days, warmth touched her face. She flinched as he knelt beside her with a basin of water. The rag in his hand was rough, yet his touch was careful, dabbing at the grime and blood. Her arms twitched back, instinctive, like a wounded animal expecting another blow. "Easy now," he said, voice deep but gentle. "Ain't here to hurt you," her lips trembled. I can't." "You don't have to," he replied. "Not tonight. Just rest." The crackle of the fire filled the silence. He wrapped her wrists in strips of cloth, winding them slow and firm, each knot a promise of care rather than cruelty. She whispered, barely audible, "Why help me?" He didn't look at her right away. His gaze rested on the flames, eyes tired, shadowed by memory. Because no one else did. Her eyes welled, not with fear this time, but something softer. Disbelief that kindness could still exist. She lay back, breathing steady for the first time, her body sinking into the rough cot as exhaustion overtook her. The rancher sat in the chair by the door, rifle resting across his lap. Outside, the prairie hummed with crickets, and the night seemed almost peaceful. For her, sleep came in fragments, haunted by shadows. Yet every time she stirred, the steady glow of the lantern and the silhouette of the man keeping watch reminded her she was no longer alone. And in that fragile peace, a seed of trust began to grow. The prairie was quiet that evening, the kind of silence that carried weight. The young woman sat near the hearth, her arms wrapped tight around herself, as if she feared the walls might vanish and leave her back in the dirt. The fire popped, throwing bursts of orange against her pale face. She whispered fragments of her story. Words caught in her throat, trembling, jagged. "He said I was nothing, that I'd rot where he left me." The rancher sat across from her, jaw tight, eyes narrowed not at her, but at the memory of the man who had spoken those words. His hand clenched against his knee, veins standing out under weathered skin. "No man's got the right," he said quietly. "Not a father. Not anyone." She lowered her gaze, tears slipping free, shame burning hotter than the fire. "He'll come back. I know he will." Outside, the night wind pressed against the shutters. The lantern on the table flickered as if it, too, shuddered with unease. The rancher rose, checking the door latch, then the window. He moved with the caution of a man who knew danger well. His boots echoed soft against the planks, and then a crunch in the dirt outside, slow, deliberate. He froze, hand resting on the rifle leaned against the wall. The girl stiffened, clutching the blanket tighter. Through the thin curtain of the window, a shadow moved across the yard. The faint glint of a horse's bridle caught the moonlight. A figure lingered just beyond the fence, still as stone, watching the cabin. The rancher's voice dropped, calm but firm. "Stay back from the window." Her breathing quickened. "It's him." "I know it's him." The figure shifted, the faint scrape of boots on gravel reaching through the night. Then after a long pause, the sound of reins snapping, hooves retreating into the dark. The silence returned, heavier now, pressing in on the cabin walls. The rancher kept the rifle across his lap, eyes never leaving the window. "He's out there," he muttered. "And he ain't done yet." The lantern flame sputtered, struggling against the draft, as though warning them both of the storm to come. Morning light spilled across the prairie as the rancher saddled his horse. The girl clung to the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, pale but determined. She didn't argue when he lifted her into the saddle. The road into town was long, and every hoofbeat echoed the unspoken truth. They couldn't face this alone. The town stirred slow at dawn, smoke curling from chimneys, dogs barking in distant alleys. When the rancher pushed open the sheriff's office door, the hinges groaned, lantern light catching on badges and dust. Sheriff Caldwell sat behind a heavy desk, a man of 60 with a steel-gray mustache and eyes sharp as flint. He looked up, studying the girl with a gaze that carried both weight and care. "She's been hurt," the rancher said, voice low but edged with iron. The sheriff stood, stepping closer. His boots echoed on the wooden floor. "Tell me," he said softly. Her voice cracked as she spoke, halting, fragile. "He tied me, left me in the desert. Said no one would care." Caldwell's jaw tightened. He took out a ledger, pen scratching across the page as he wrote every word. "You know his name?" Her lips trembled. "My stepfather. Eli Granger." The sheriff stopped writing, eyes narrowing. "Granger's been trouble for years. Drunk, gambler, mean as a rattler. Folks always looked the other way." The rancher leaned forward, anger in his voice. "Not anymore," the sheriff nodded slowly. "Law'll see to him. But you need to understand, men like Granger don't walk quiet into justice. He'll fight it tooth and nail." Outside, voices murmured. Word was spreading fast. Some faces looked in through the window, pity in their eyes. Others turned away, whispering behind hands, shame mixed with cruelty. The girl shrank back under their gaze, eyes wet. "They all know." The rancher's hand rested firm on her shoulder. "Let 'em look. It ain't your shame. It's his." Sheriff Caldwell set down his pen, his voice steady. "You've got the law on your side now. And Granger, he'll face the rope if I've got breath left in me." The girl drew a shaky breath. For the first time, hope stirred, thin, fragile, but real. The prairie lay quiet under a silver moon, the ranch wrapped in uneasy stillness. Crickets sang their endless hymn, and the girl dozed fitfully by the hearth. But the rancher didn't sleep. He sat by the door with his rifle across his lap, eyes on the black horizon. Then it came, a faint rhythm. Hooves in the distance, slow at first, then gathering like thunder. The dogs outside erupted, snarling and barking. The girl bolted upright, fear flashing in her eyes. The rancher rose, steady and grim, moving to the door. Through the darkness, flames appeared. Torches swaying in the hands of men. Shadows stretched long across the yard as figures on horseback encircled the ranch. Their laughter carried on the night wind, sharp and cruel. At their head was Eli Granger, his face twisted with drink and rage, torchlight dancing in his bloodshot eyes. "She's mine!" he shouted, voice hoarse. "And you'll burn for stealing her." The rancher stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. His boots thudded against the boards, firm, unshaken. Not tonight, Granger. Not ever again. The girl clutched the blanket tighter, heart pounding. Through the window, she saw the men spreading out, some heading for the barn, others toward the fence. One tossed a torch into the dry grass. Flames licked upward, orange against the night. Gunfire cracked. A bullet splintered the railing inches from the rancher's leg. He didn't flinch. He fired back, the blast echoing like thunder across the plains. One rider reeled, falling from his saddle. Inside, the girl pressed against the wall, trembling as the windows rattled with every shot. Smoke seeped through the cracks, choking the air. The outlaws whooped and hollered, circling like wolves, their torches blazing. Horses screamed, panicked at the fire. Granger rode closer, sneering. "You can't keep her from me, old man."
"She belongs to me!"
The rancher's voice cut like steel. "She belongs to no one." The night erupted again. Shots, fire, the pounding of hooves. Chaos swirled around the little cabin, the flames painting the land in blood and ash. And still, through the fury, the rancher stood firm in the doorway, a lone shield between her and the hell that had come to claim her. The night was alive with chaos. Flames licked the fences, smoke curling into the starless sky. The rancher's boots pounded the porch, rifle steady, eyes fixed on the shadows moving in the firelight. Horses screamed, hooves striking the dirt, sending sparks into the dry grass. Eli Granger and his gang tore through the yard, torches swinging, fists flying. One outlaw swung at the barn door, breaking the wood with a crash that shook the cabin. The girl ducked behind a post, heart hammering, eyes wide with terror. "You can't keep her." Granger roared, spittle flying. "She's mine!